Hello, good morning. Welcome to Gaming Insight Daily for Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. I'm Steve Saylor. This is your daily show of gaming news, accessibility news, or updates about my life. I have a caramel coffee today in my Last of Us mug with a little bit of milk, and yeah, it tastes good. I had to skip yesterday's episode because I had essentially 2 videos going out, and having a third one just seemed like it was overcrowding your subscription box. So I basically and I had to be able I needed to dedicate time to be able to finish up a bit of editing for my Assassin's Creed Shadow review, which if you are interested in checking that out, or my thoughts on Assassin's Creed Shadows for accessibility, I'll leave a link in the description down below for you to be able to check out, because I would really appreciate it. Also, the second video, if you haven't seen it yet, is a first look at the Xbox adaptive joystick, which I have conveniently right here. If you're watching the video version of this, it is very much like a Nintendo Wii nunchuck, and it has the 4 face buttons, has a joystick, and it has a shoulder button and a trigger button. Basically, half of a controller's half of a controller's Xbox controller's buttons are on one device. So. And I don't know why my music all of a sudden just shut off, so we're gonna fix that. There we go. Perfect. So yeah, that's a bit of housekeeping for you. So if you haven't checked out those 2 videos, again, links in the description down below. All right, let's jump into today's news, and I want to ask you a question. We're gonna jump into speculation station with this story, because there once was an idea. And I didn't steal that pun. I didn't steal that pun. No, of course. So, according to a story that was posted on IGN, written by Wesley Inpool, the article is: there once was an idea for a Marvel gaming universe that would tie all the video games together like the MCU, but it didn't get funded. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has come to dominate entertainment with its interconnected series of films and TV shows that all tie together to form a long-running, cohesive narrative. Marvel video games, however, do not exist in the same universe, telling stories entirely separate and are unrelated to each other. Insomniac's Marvel Spider-Man games, for example, have nothing to do with Eidos Montreal's Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Similarly, upcoming Marvel games such as Marvel 1943, Rise of Hydra, Marvel's Wolverine, and Marvel's Blade have no connective tissue. But there once was an idea at Disney to create a Marvel gaming universe that would do for Marvel video games, what the MCU went on to do for Marvel movies and TV shows. So, what happened? Speaking on the Fourth Curtain podcast, host Alexander Seropian and guest Alex Irvine recalled this MGU idea, which both had worked on, and revealed why it fell by the wayside. Seropian, perhaps best known as one of the founders of Halo and Disney developer Bungie, went on to run Disney's video game business before leaving in 2012. Irvine was the long-running writer of Marvel games, most recently working on the world-building, dialogue, and character backstories for smash hit Marvel Rivals. Discussing his prior work on Marvel games, Irvine discussed the scrapped MGU. When I first started working on Marvel games, there was this idea that they were going to create a Marvel gaming universe that was going to exist in the same way that the MCU did, Irvine said. It never really happened. Seropian then explained that the MGU was his initiative, but it never got funded by the higher-ups at Disney. When I was at Disney, that was my initiative. Hey, let's tie these games together. It was pre-MCU, Seropian said, but it didn't get funded. Irvine, who had worked on the iconic Halo alternate reality game, ARG, I Love Bees, while at Bungie, went into some detail on how this MGU would have worked. That was so frustrating because we came up with all these great ideas about how to do it, he said. And I was coming out of ARGs at that point and thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we had some ARG aspects? There would be a place where players could go that all the games touched, and we could move them back and forth from game to game. We could link in comics, we could loop in anything, we could do original stuff. And then, as Alex said, it didn't get funded, so we made a bunch of games. But why did the MGU fail to get the internal buy-in to move forward? Irvine suggested the idea became so complex it ended up putting some people at Disney off. Even back then, we were trying to figure out, if there's going to be this MGU, how is it different from the comics? How is it different from the movies? How are we going to decide if it stays consistent? And I think some of those questions got complex enough that there were people at Disney who didn't really want to deal with them, Irvine explained. It's fun to imagine what might have been had the MGU got the idea, got the funding it needed to become a reality. Perhaps if it had, Insomniac Spider-Man games would have existed in the same universe as Square Enix's ill-fated Marvel's Avengers and Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, with characters from each game making cameo appearances across the titles, or the stories all building towards some epic endgame style event. Looking ahead, there are questions over Insomniac's Marvel's Wolverine game. Will it be set within the same universe as Marvel's Spider-Man? Could Spider-Man or any other character from those games end up making a cameo in Wolverine in some way? Also, the MGU goes down as yet another scrapped video game idea, although perhaps in another universe somewhere, it is a reality. All right. The reason why I said we're going to jump into speculation... Oh, I'm going to cough for a second. The reason why I wanted to go into speculation station for a minute is coming up with what could the MGU could have been, and was it a good idea? Honestly, I think it probably was a good idea that it didn't get off the ground, because I don't know. I think when you're trying to tie in the games together, you are limited in the kind of stories you can be able to tell, and when you're trying to be able to kind of find your way without having a sort of a grand plan, and you're now working with multiple studios, you can start to see that that the idea would have been way too huge, because right now, or at least even when the MGU was kind of created, there was no cohesive one studio to kind of rule them all. Yes, there's Marvel Games in that sense, and that kind of oversee and sort of get to sort of dictate what studios get to work on what games, but they kind of allow each studio to have their own autonomy. They can create the kind of game that they want within the franchise that they're given, but they never really kind of the two have ever met. And I think that that's probably the better decision, because if it was under one studio, so right now we're seeing the opposite of this with WB, with DC. Right now, DC is kind of floundering in the games department because they're trying to be able to kind of create this internally within the within their own studios, not necessarily like a DCU for video games, but just when you have one studio or one company that's basically kind of rules them all, working internally with their own studios and trying to make it just, you have a lot of oversight that essentially that could kind of dictate to a studio, you need to do this, and the studio will go along with it because they have to, but it may not be the best decision, i.e. Suicide Squad. But when you have with the strategy that Marvel Games has done, which is like they don't have a central, there's a central company that oversees it, but there's not a central studio. Like there's Insomniac, there's Eidos Montreal, there's whoever made I can't remember the studio off the top of my head who made Midnight Suns, and also Tencent or sorry NetEase Games with Marvel Rivals. Like all these studios have their own take on the Marvel universe within the franchise that they're given, and I think that allows the freedom to kind of create the game that they would want to create, instead of trying to tie in everything into one, or trying to be kind of like this big kind of like mandate from the specific the company that runs it all. Yes, Marvel Games kind of runs everything, but I feel like that there's a lot more freedom within the studios to kind of create what they want. Whereas within WB very much dictates what gets made and what doesn't, instead of just sort of pitching or allowing other studios to kind of pitch it. So going back to this MGU idea, could it have worked? Sorry, I feel like my voice kind of feels like it sounds like it has like something stuck in my throat. So I apologize. I feel. Oh, let me try cough again. Okay, I think that worked. I think that worked. All right. So with this MGU idea could have worked. Let's kind of speculate on what it could be. I like the idea of that there is something within each of the games that is tied together, or that each game is kind of tied to, like a location essentially, or a thing that is sort of kind of connects the two, or connects the multiple games. I like that idea because I sort of imagine, my first thought, now I would think that they would kind of create their own version of this, but imagine if, say, like Doctor Strange's home, like the clock tower essentially, that could be that could be the sort of the connecting point for these multi-universes to kind of or everything kind of like was connected to Doctor Strange somehow, and that every game may not necessarily have Doctor Strange in it, or it may not even like, but it would reference the clock tower in some way. Like I can imagine them like starting that off and being like, and then kind of speculating what that could mean, and basically kind of expanding on, but that was my first thought. And then my second thought was, no, they're going to probably create something different. They're going to create something new that connects these universes together, connects these stories together. And it's like a MacGuffin that I think essentially gets kind of like shown or talked about or seen a little bit in sort of the different lore. I feel like that they could tease a little bit of what is this sort of magical, let's say a magical talisman of some sort that kind of connects all of them together. And you hear about this from a lore book in Wolverine, or you see it displayed in a museum in Spider-Man, or you get to see it in the collector's sort of collection in Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Like you see, like you can see that there's definitely aspects where they can kind of insert this magical talisman throughout. And then what I would think was that basically this talisman is kind of this is now my sort of creative mind break kind of coming in, but I sort of imagine like, everyone's kind of like, they have their own game, and then all of a sudden this talisman kind of like comes to life and now affects every other thing, and then every other game kind of like a sequel kind of like gets affected by it a little bit, or that's maybe the B plot of some games, not necessarily the A plot. And like I could see them kind of building up very much sort of how they did the MCU, where each character, each game has their own thing. They get to create their own thing and just sort of mention the outside world of it, kind of similar to say like Iron Man, where there was the end credit story of Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury coming to see Tony Stark and saying, I want to talk about this Avengers initiative, like that kind of a teaser, sort of like something like that. Like you see that in the first games, and then the second games or the sequel games, if they would do well, essentially they get to kind of expand on that and get to build up on that. I think it could have been cool. It is very super complicated and super complex, and you would need kind of someone like a Kevin Feige, but for the video game side, to kind of build up that storyline throughout each of these games, but still allowing these games to kind of like create their own worlds, create their own stories, and without having to necessarily like try to insert this overarching story into it. I think it could have been where, maybe not necessarily the individual game series would have like culminate in an end game scenario, but I could see like an end game type game that one studio works on, that all the other games kind of like get to collaborate, or all the studios get to collaborate in. So like we see like Peter Parker from Marvel's Spider-Man, and we see we get to see Peter Quill's character from Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and then we get to see Thor from Marvel's Avengers or something like that, or your character that you get to play in Midnight Suns, like that. Like I'm just using the games that are currently out there right now, not necessarily like any other games that are in development, but like I could see them all kind of coming together in this one game, and the studio who makes this end game type game gets to make however they want, but with the collaboration of the other studios to make sure that each of the characters are portrayed in the same way as they are in the other games. So maybe not necessarily like, and then that's where they get to kind of collaborate a little bit, because we see game studios kind of collaborate with other studios all the time. Maybe not necessarily in story, but at least in development support. So I could see this MGU actually kind of being a cool thing now that I'm sort of like putting my creative brain on. But I could definitely see why Disney would have been reluctant to do it, because of how complex that could have been. And it's building up a multi-year. And you gotta think, like, with movies and TV shows, they're a little bit easier to make than video games, or at least they take less time to be able to make than video games. You can basically shoot a whole TV series within a year, and then basically have a release by next year. Video games is different. Video games, you need at least at least currently right now, about minimum, or like on average about 4 to 5 years in order to be able to make a great game. So this would mean that if the MGU was to exist, say like if going back as far as Marvel Spider-Man by 2018, if that continued to go forward with this MGU idea, we probably could have had at least about maybe the games that could have been released now, we could probably be leading towards an end game type event by now, or this could be another 5 years before we get to even to that point. So it's an idea that is cool, but whether or not in 10 years time it's going to be worth getting into, considering how many games could be released within that period of time, that's where I think like there's a bit of reluctance there, and I think that could potentially, like, because one could fail, like one game could fail and just kind of send the entire like MGU idea into into turmoil. So who knows what could have happened. And I think within the MCU, yeah, they've had games or movies that and TV shows that have flopped. I mean, like Iron Fist, and I mean, Ant-Man wasn't necessarily like a failure, but it didn't exactly hit all the box office hit like numbers that all the other Marvel movies at that time had gotten. So yeah, and I'll even we'll go with it. The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton, and got switched out to Mark Ruffalo instead. So there are things that MCU can be able to easily pivot, but within video games you can't really pivot as much. So they kind of almost have to be hits out of the gate. Otherwise, the end game sort of result could be like, well, we don't want to play as Iron Fist, so don't even bother. Anyway, so I think it's a really neat concept. I would love to hear your thoughts. What would you have loved to have seen if the MGU existed today? What would you have loved to be able to see, or what idea of an MGU could you have come up with? I'd be very curious to know. Let me know in the comments down below. All right, next story. Now that sort of Assassin's Creed Shadows is about ready to release, it comes out tomorrow, as of this recording. Chris Scullion over at VGC has learned that Ubisoft reportedly has lawyers ready to fight Assassin's Creed Shadows harassment. And apparently there's an I'll read the update last, but for right now, I'll just read the original article. After numerous delays, the game is finally set to release on March 20th on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, but has been subject to more than its fair share of controversy since it has originally announced. The most notable talking about is the co-protagonist Yasuke, a black samurai. Some have accused Ubisoft of being woke by featuring Yasuke in the game, even though Yasuke was an actual person in real life. The game's director, Charles Benoit, has defended the decision, previously telling the Canadian press that Yasuke was also chosen so that players can discover Japan through the eyes of a foreigner at the same time as he does. Nevertheless, the decision has led to anger from some sections of the video game community, that's to say the least, which has reportedly led to Ubisoft making preparations for potential harassment incidents that may occur after the game is released. According to French publication BFM TV, Ubisoft has put into place a system designed to protect its employees, with one staff member reportedly telling the publication, "We are advised not to post on social media that we work at Ubisoft to avoid harassment." The report says that Ubisoft has also presented an anti-online harassment plan to its CSE, the Works Council, to make sure employees are protected when the game is released. This is an initiative from Canada. An elected CSE official told the publication, "There's a team that monitors networks and acts quickly in the event of a targeted attack," they explained, adding, "Unlike what we have had before, this is serious. A dedicated unit will closely monitor messages posted by users on such social media sites as Twitter, Reddit, and YouTube, ready to react if anyone attempted to harass Ubisoft employees." Actually, no, I'll keep with X for that. I normally, anytime I see the word X, I always switch it to Twitter. But in this case, because it's harassment, it's targeted trolls and stuff like that, 100% it's X. X is the culprit here. Targeted employees will be offered psychological and legal support, while Ubisoft reportedly has lawyers ready to lodge complaints if a proven case of harassment is found. All right, and then let's read the update for this story. The article has previously stated that according to the original report, Ubisoft had presented an anti-online harassment plan to the CSE, which is the name of Canada's National Cryptologic Agency. Although the source article does refer to the CSE and says the plan was initiated in Canada, the CSE in question actually refers to Comité Social Économique, which is a French name, but a group formed by Ubisoft's Canadian staff as opposed to the Canadian government agency. VGC has corrected this interpretation. Oh, okay. All right. So that was basically just the update. I hate to say that this was necessary, but unfortunately, this was necessary. And this is not Ubisoft's fault. I mean, it's to a certain degree. I think that there are certain aspects of things that they kind of stepped the rake on, with basically not really responding in regards to Yasuke, but then also the specific sort of non-accurate portrayal of some aspects of Japan during that historical period, it could potentially be warranted. I would definitely not say that Ubisoft is sort of 100% blameless in this. However, all the other, like, that is the only considerable legitimate aspects of the game, or of the game to be able to criticize in regards to, other than the game itself. Like, if you have a review of the game and you are reviewing it from a completely sort of from the game's merits and the game itself, then you're reviewing that from that aspect. But when it comes to the trolls, basically, like, and just claiming woke for every single sort of, like, every single time you see someone who's non-white in a game, or just anything in regards to that at all, I think it's unfortunate that Ubisoft has to have this in place. And believe me, as someone who has received a lot of harassment online, I appreciate Ubisoft for standing up for its employees at this time and being there, giving that legal and psychological support, or mental health support as needed. And it sucks because I've often told, like, I used to teach at a college here in Toronto, game development, or more specifically how to build up your online presence in a game development, in the game development community. And one of the things I said, or I taught, was when you talk about the projects you were on, when you can, if you're not under an NDA. But promoting that what the games you worked on is your resume. That's what, like, you can be able to use, as a way to be able to kind of get more work, or to be able to kind of give some legitimacy to and building up your online presence. And to see that essentially kind of being taken advantage of, when developers, all they care about the fact that they worked, like, they worked on a game that they love to be able to work on, and they're proud about being working on it. And that's all they wanted to do. That's all they wanted to be able to, like, they're proud of working for a studio that the game that they made. I screwed up the wording there in grammar. But they're very, like, I want to have developers to brag about the work that they did on a game, especially like if a game does well, or also, you know, hey, if there's certain, like, the game doesn't do super well, but hey, this looked really cool. I want developers to be able to brag about that and not receive any harassment. But unfortunately, it's the internet nowadays, and these things need to be in place. And it sucks because not only yes, I'm happy that Ubisoft has given the support, but also I'm sad that essentially that Ubisoft is saying don't post on social media, even to be able to, like, I just feel bad, like, they can't celebrate online with their community if they've built up one through social media. That they can't talk about it, and because of potential harassment. And it just sucks that essentially anybody, like, any of these stupid trolls will search for any news or any link to anything from remotely to this game, and anyone's going to get basically immediate harassment for it. It started months ago. It started years ago, essentially, when the game was announced, and it's only gotten worse. I am glad that Ubisoft is stepping in and finally taking like protecting their employees, which is great. It's a great initiative. I'm not knocking that. I just feel like that it's like, I'm sad that it had to happen this way. Let's just say that. So, anyway, I think I'm just going to kind of end it there today. I would recommend, if you're interested in learning more about what Assassin's Creed Shadows is like, go check out my review. Link will be in the description down below. And that is where I'm going to kind of leave it for today. I want to thank you all for listening and or watching, especially the new folks who have come in over the past couple of days, especially with some of the videos I put out. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you're from that, I hope you enjoyed the show. This is a show we post every single weekday, or at least we try to every single weekday, and we talk about the latest gaming news. And if there's any accessibility news that come up, I will always talk about that as well. So take care. Have yourself a great day. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.